Fate cannot be changed. Destiny cannot be changed. History cannot be changed. You cannot go back in time and unplay the original Final Fantasy VII in order to play the remake completely spoiler-free. But do you need to? Does having played the original enhance the remake, or does it hinder it? That may seem like a silly question at first, and maybe even trivial. This is a remake after all, right? It should be the same story, hit the same beats. But the fact is, it doesn't. I'd argue that this game, this remake, and its future installments, which, by the by, this game really only covers about the first half of the original discs, are actually a reboot in disguise, because there are surprises in store here for even the most seasoned FF7 veteran. Still though, the undeniable fact is that anyone who has played both the classic and remake, or intends to play the FF7 remake, will always fall into one of two camps. Either you played the original and have pre-existing knowledge of the story as well as expectations for what you want to see, or you're coming in fresh with possible spoiler knowledge on hand. And you're kinda stuck that way.
And trust me, as much as I'd like to experience this game with a clean slate, no amount of brain damage or Mako poisoning, I tried, is going to help me forget how much I loved the original game. Plus, there is an air to it that's kind of banking on you to have played the original, but I don't think it's necessary.
Though newcomers will definitely miss out on a lot of the references, as well as context behind some of these scenes, especially towards the end. Though those could technically be explained away during Remake Part 2 or 3 or any time down the line. What I'm really trying to say here is that it is impossible for one person to experience this game from both perspectives, and as such will impact how you experience the game, though you might not realize it at first. Because this game, and the demo for that matter, opens up with a beautiful and very faithful recreation of the opening missions from the PS1, introducing you to the characters and jumping straight into the action. It is one of the best openings to a game ever, and even with the minor tweaks they made here and there, it still feels right. But it's what happens after, when the demo reaches its end, that things start to go off the rails, and what camp you reside in begins to color your perspective. And just a quick aside, I will be bringing up minor elements of the story, but I have no intention of spoiling anything that matters or ruining any of the mysteries. This is an RPG, that would be messed up. But these two significant changes, right at the start no less, I feel really exemplifies the difference in experiences between the fans of the original and the first timers may have. With the first major culprit being the big bad himself, Sephiroth. Yeah, this time around, instead of a slow build-up and reveal about halfway through the first disc of the original game, you know, when this game ends, this time around, he's there right from the start, haunting Cloud, menacingly. Now, I figure, unlike in 97, most gamers, even non-FF fans, in general probably at the very least know who Sephiroth is. He is one of the greatest villains of all time, often duking it out with a crazed clown for best Final Fantasy villain. And really, he's been in a few games. So this change might be welcomed, since in-game, little info is really given about him, and his appearances do have an air of mystery to them. But I already know his deal, so depending on how you're first experiencing FF7, this might or might not be more interesting. If this is your first time experiencing FF7 at all, please, I'd like to hear your take on it in the comments below so we can see the other side. Which brings us to this iconic moment, where Cloud and Aerith first meet. I think we all remember how this goes, right? They bump into each other, she gives him a flower, they make a little small talk, they're attacked by Dementors, hold on. It was in this moment that it really hit me. It really sunk in. Cloud forgot to equip his Patronus materia! Of all the times! Oh, and also that this remake isn't just expanding on the original story, it's changing it, which I am of two minds on. On the one hand, changing it means that I, someone who has experienced the original game, will still get to experience something new with these unexpected twists. Though that heavily relies on whether or not they can pull this off in the long run.
There are higher heights to which you and I can still soar.
On the other hand, the original story was amazing and I'd love to see it done right. Plus, newcomers won't get to experience that classic tale with these shiny new graphics. And wow, these are some of the best graphics to date. Except for when they're not. The original FF7 was easily one of, if not the best looking games of its time. And even if it hasn't aged all that gracefully, the remake lives up to that legacy. It is a beautiful game, there is no denying that. Fans have been saying that this game is exactly what their nostalgia remembers the original looking like, and it's easy to see why. Towns are large and sprawling with life and just littered with detail. As a fan of the original, it is just amazing to get to see these classic areas in a new light, both figuratively and literally. Never got to experience Wall Market during the day, but the real shining stars here are the stars themselves. Cloud, Tifa, Barret, Aerith, and basically anyone that matters looks outstanding. I'd go as far as to say that they are the best looking characters in gaming to date. They all look stunning and are used to great effect to show off more character traits and demeanors, bringing us closer to these characters than we've ever been before. Though ironically, maybe they look too good. As I said, every important character looks outstanding, but not every character is important. And well, I think the side-by-side speaks for itself. Like, who put all these PS3 characters in my PS4 game? Now, as someone who makes CG characters in his spare time, and no, they are not even remotely close to as good as the characters are in this game, I fully and completely understand the reasoning behind this. And it really is just nitpicking. But still, that said, as a total package, it still looks amazing. Minor blemishes and all. But while I'm nitpicking blemishes, the audio. All the little hidden tracks in the game that you can find, as well as people talking, can get in the way of conversations that Cloud and characters are having, and I did kind of find that annoying with how many times it actually happened. But that's really small potatoes compared to just how god tier the music in this game really is. I mean, there is a reason that the Final Fantasy series as a whole is one of the most recognizable soundtracks in all of gaming. Has orchestra tours, and even had its own radio station at one point. Yeah, look it up. And in my opinion, FF7 is the best of the bunch. Epic combat tracks, cool urban tunes, and of course some of the most touching, soothing, and depressing scores you will ever hear. I think you know the one, and why.
Even time can't heal all wounds. Or can it?
Yeah, so with these new additions to the game comes new ways to play, new objectives to accomplish, and of course lots and lots of new things to see. And some of it is exactly what we were all hoping for. And the rest is just padding. What definitely works is how the remake has expanded on its world and characters, like any good remake or reboot absolutely should. Previously unexplored side characters get some real time to shine, and character traits are more deeply explored and fleshed out. Like how caring a father Barret really is. Aww. Even motives get further expanded upon. They actually found a way to make Shinra seem even more evil, all while tying in more of the world's lore. Like the war in Wutai, which was definitely more prevalent in the spin-off Crisis Core. Also needs a remake. Of course, all of these additions don't exactly hit the mark, and as a result, really bog down the pacing. For example, during the Battle of the Plate Tower, Aerith goes to rescue Marlene. In the original game, we never actually see it happen. Here, we get to play it. And it is so slow, and doesn't match the tone of the situation the characters are in at all. And afterwards, the underground lab, as well as the build up to the second major boss fight, just feels tacked on to pad things out in areas that it didn't really need to. Don't even get me started on Hojo's lab. But here's the thing, padding or not, it's not all bad. In town, between major events, there are lots of small side quests you can partake in. Small fights, fetch quests, things like that. These are good examples of padding, because they let you freely explore this fantastic world, adding a couple of hours to the game, and they're optional. And as we saw with a previous Final Fantasy, an RPG without side quests is basically just a hallway. Now, the last thing that I really want to talk about is the combat. If you take a look at the combat of the original game and the remake side by side, you might have noticed a small, minor change. It's actually fun now.
I am kidding. I actually love turn-based games. Please don't kill me. But the thing is, I have met so many people, who don't like them. Won't even give them the time of day. So this is the perfect opportunity to show them just how great this series really is.
Okay, but obviously, gone is the classic turn-based system of old, and in its place, a new real-time action system that is a major step up from previous Final Fantasies that have tried to break away from the roots. Combat is fast and pretty fun with just the right amount of strategy to it. Kind of like Kingdom Hearts, before the combat got, oh my god, what the hell is happening right now with these levels of speed? Instead, this system revolves around the ATB meter, active time bar. A bar that once filled up through attacking, blocking, and just time passing, basically allows you to slow down time and pick which special moves, magic, or items you want to use. And you can give these commands to your AI teammates as well. But this is where a lot of the challenge comes in. There have been plenty of moments where I needed a heal and none of my characters had their bars full. So I had to go on the offense while treading carefully. Also, if you're playing on the easier settings, the characters will basically fight and defend for you, so you can focus on giving out ATB commands. But that does lead us to one of the combat's major flaws, your team's AI. Sadly, characters' ATBs never really seem to build up unless you're directly controlling them. It seems like they're just standing around most of the time, or worse, they're where they shouldn't be. Aerith, for example, is a ranged fighter, but for some reason, she just insists on getting up close and personal. Why? Really, this system would be at its best if this was a co-op game. Wouldn't that just be awesome? But that being said, switching between your characters is a great mechanic. Aside from letting you switch out whenever you get bound or hit with a status effect, which I hate. Seriously, my first game over was to these Borderland rejects when they stun-locked me in a solo battle.
Yeah. Here's my gamer card. I don't deserve it.
But it's also a great opportunity to play as all the characters, which is a blast because they all feel unique and boast their own special moves. Personally, I really like controlling Cloud's mighty sword swings and Tifa's blazing fast punches. And while flawed, this really is the most fun I've had with combat in a modern Final Fantasy game. And I really hope they stick with it and continue to improve upon this system with future installments, as well as other possible remakes. FF5, anyone? But as far as this remake goes, I asked in the beginning if having played the original helps or hinders this game. And while I'd like to give a definitive answer, sadly, I really can't. Because there were moments when I felt like this game surpassed the original with ease, such as excellent character development, world building, and obviously the visuals. But then there were parts that were just like, why did they make those changes? Like with the painful amounts of padding, as well as some edits to the story that I simply just can't get behind. Still, I think it's the story that will be the deciding factor here. The original Final Fantasy VII is my favorite game of all time. And despite being a remake, this game is not a substitute for the original. It's trying to be its own thing. And it succeeds in that, for better or worse. But even so, it is a fantastic ride while it lasts. I think fans of the original will be able to enjoy this one, changes and all, and newcomers will finally get to see what all the hype is about. If you like JRPGs, action RPGs, and just great characters and stories in general, then you absolutely need to check this one out. And if you haven't played the original yet, jump on that too, preferably before playing the remake. I am very much looking forward to part 2 of this series, but until then, FF7 Remake comes highly recommended.